I want to come to you about a book that I've written during this whole COVID-19 event of 2020, the first part of 2020. And I've entitled it Agenda, and the subtitle could still do with some refining: A Layman's Guide to Socialism and What the Heck is Really Going On with Climate Change, Population Control, the COVID-19 event, social justice, and much, much more. So I've got a table of contents here of the book that I wanted to share with you just as a teaser, and then just read from chapter 1. The chapter is called Agenda, where everyone has one. But I wanted to give you the table of contents just to see what your feedback will be on whether you're interested in hearing more posts, YouTube posts on aspects from the book and the book itself, how you can get it when it does come out and so on. So this is the table of contents. Chapter 1, Agenda, everyone has one. And then in chapter 2, I define liberals, leftists, and more, how the collective is described in terms of comparison with the individual, how that all ties in with life in community. Chapter 3 deals with globalism, how it's defined and how it connects with socialism and the New World Order. These are terminologies and things that you've probably heard sometime in the past. Chapter 4 talks about socialism in the United States. Now, in the United States is supposedly a place that's, capitalism par excellence, but yet, seriously, there's socialism that's been going on in the United States for quite a while, to varying degrees. Chapter 5, what did George Orwell, the guy who wrote 1984 and Animal Farm, what did he have to say about Facebook and YouTube? Well, the answer is obviously nothing, because he wrote way before they were invented even. But yet there's application, because as a secular prophet, you could almost say, he projected into the future and he saw a whole lot of stuff with centralized control and communication and so on that were absolutely amazing in that novel 1984. And I draw some comparisons with what the heck's going on today. Chapter 6, the rise of socialism amongst millennials. The social justice folk, whether this whole thing is a legitimate cause to get behind and throw their lives behind. Chapter 7, the church and state separation debate that goes on, and how that ties in with secular humanism, what that is, and socialism, the freedom of religion or the freedom from religion, which a lot of people are advocating for today. There's been a major, major shift in opinion about this whole business of church and state separation. Chapter 8, population growth control. Now, this is going to be an interesting chapter for a lot of you. What this has to do with socialism and the coronavirus 2020 event. There seems to be a lot of connections, a lot of stuff that if you're paying attention and not drinking the Kool-Aid, you will find out from the book. Chapter 9, climate change. Now, I used to be a geography teacher. I studied climatology and weather and climate and so on in my undergraduate degree in South Africa. And so I know a little bit about what's going on there and have done some research on the subject of climate change and how that ties in with the agenda for the planet. So I've subtitled that chapter, Things Are Hotting Up. Chapter 10. This is a question I try to answer in that chapter. What is the agenda behind the agenda? And I subtitled that chapter, Green is the New Red. So tying in environmentalism and all the concerns that people have about how the planet is going to kind of implode if we don't do something immediately about all of the issues of pollution and greenhouse gases and just stuff like that. Chapter 11, now I start to focus on some of the things that ties things together from a spiritual point of view, because I believe that we're all connected, spirit, soul, and body, and all the stuff there is not all artificially separated out. There's a connection. The wheels spin together. Chapter 11, was Jesus a socialist? My goodness. And I look at what I understand from the Bible to be the true gospel, and then the false gospel of socialism that has crept into the church and crept into the teachings of the church and influenced the way people see freedom. They see freedom from all sorts of other things other than the need to have our hearts changed by the Lord through a work of his Spirit. Now, was Jesus a socialist? We can look at some of the scriptures that people have used to prove that. For example, he told the rich guy he needs to sell everything he has, give to the poor, and then follow him. And so, we kind of look at that scripture and a bunch of others there to see whether Jesus was really a socialist or not. Chapter 12, what about his church then? The early church in the book of Acts, did they practice a form of socialism with their community living where they sold everything and distributed it out, etc., etc.? Well, is that a model to follow today? Is it relevant? Are the principles still real, etc.? That's chapter 12. And then chapter 13, I look at some broad-based kingdom principles of what is known as true prosperity, how God defines prosperity or well-being for his people, and what his plan all along has been for individuals and then also for communities and nations as a whole, a people as a whole. Because God has something to say about every facet of life, and so we need to pay attention. In my view, that's my agenda, is to shine some light on this whole thing. Chapter 14 talks about why all this matters and what we can do about it. A lot of people are advocating for social change and systemic change and activism and so on. We'll see how that applies when you get down to that chapter. So let me just read quickly, it won't be long. Chapter 1, entitled Agenda, Everybody Has One. I'm going to read from the actual text here, which may well be edited later, but nevertheless, this is a draft. Surely you're not saying, this is the start now, quote, surely you are not saying that population control, climate change, and coronavirus 19 are connected somehow to socialism. Well, yes, I am. Today, we live entangled within a latticework of regulations that impact every aspect of life, from religion to food even. These regulations at every level, whether local or national, have often been imposed on us in a top-down sleight of hand, where our supposed informed consent in the political process has been bypassed, especially in times of crisis, by leaders who have an agenda to advance. Top-down control has existed throughout history, most often enforced by weaponry, owned or controlled only by those in authority. The general populace has had to put up with everything that gets handed down, unless they rise up in rebellion that costs them their freedom and or lives. In America, at least, there has been an ongoing experiment with representative democracy within a constitutional republic that has pushed back on the controlling ruling elites that they have exerted on the people. The US Declaration of Independence from British monarchical rule began this way, and this is a quote from the Constitution, the preamble. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Endowed by the Creator. This equality and endowment of rights are given by the Creator, to whom we are accountable for the treatment of our fellow man. They are not conferred on us by human consensus or political process and agreement. It is God's wisdom and divine perspective that enables us to face the challenges of modern society, not our smarts alone. A people who exclude God from their understanding of life can only resort to their own devices. That much is obvious. The founding fathers of the US understood the need for God's transcendence, that our society must have a moral underpinning. He is a God of purpose, and if his purposes and ways are ignored, there is a tension that no amount of government law can solve that arises. Socialism is rooted in Karl Marx's atheism, a denial of the existence of God himself and therefore his right to guide our affairs on this earth. Socialism is, in a way, man's attempt to save himself. So far, it has not worked out too well. A quick word about agenda. Everyone has an agenda based on their worldview. Our worldview is that comprehensive filter or framework of ideas and attitudes through which we understand the world. My agenda, as I put forth in the book, is to shine some light in the darkness, as I see it. My world view stems obviously from my unique life journey, as does yours. Simply put, I see things from a Judeo-Christian point of view. Hopefully, you will keep reading and find some things of value in this book, even if your worldview differs from mine at this point. An agenda is defined as, 1, a list of things to be considered or done, like at a meeting in an office or something. Number 2, an underlying plan or program. Now we start to get into this whole social engineering thing. Or number 3, a political agenda that people follow through the political process. When advancing an agenda in the second sense, there must be a belief that what is being done is the right thing to do. Otherwise, why do anything at all? Doing something else would therefore be wrong, quote unquote. Hopefully, facts, data, science, reason, and some divine inspiration, in my view, are the foundation of any agenda. However, I contend that it's naive to think that things like ideology, greed, and selfish profiteering, or human failures, do not factor into the pursuit of science. Science is tainted by scientists. So, pure scientific research and its practical application does not really happen. Scientists and their funders have an agenda too. So, must we put up with what we get? Or can progress be made with liberal helpings of humility and a strong doses of honesty and transparency? I think so. Godly character is a foundation of truth, and science ought to involve the pursuit of truth. By the way, some of what you will read in this book will fall into the category of what's considered or called a conspiracy theory, a term that may well have been promoted by the CIA as derogatory back in the day when people began to question the Warren Commission's finding on the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Since that time, skeptics of all things official have been consistently branded as conspiracy theorists, and thus their views were to be dismissed. Hopefully, much of what is presented in this book will not be dismissed by you as falling into that category, especially when you step back and appreciate that everyone has an agenda. Let the light shine on in. Oh yes, by the way, we've discovered again that sunlight is good for you. Okay, so that's the first chapter. And as I mentioned, I wanted to use this as an opportunity to kind of put out there to see the reaction. So if you want to react to this YouTube, then make a comment, a like, or however it works there. Subscribe even to the channel, hit the like button, that type of thing, so I can get some feedback here to proceed from this point. So have a good day. Bye now.